Hey guys, Happy New Year. Today is... Okay then. 2019 is off to a fantastic start. So today is January 1st, beginning of a brand new year, and this is the first episode of... I don't really have a title for it yet. We're just going to call it the Album Club, okay? This is a monthly reminder that the LP is not dead. Every month on the 1st, I'm going to be giving you 4 albums that I would like for you to listen to throughout the month. It's basically a book club, but with albums instead. I don't feel like it takes as long to listen to an album and get into it than it does like reading one book, so that's why there's 4. If you can't manage to listen to all 4 albums, if you have a really busy life, then just pick a couple, 1 or 2 that you think would, you know, take your interest. There is no obligation to listen to all 4. You don't have to listen to all 4 of them in depth if you really don't want to. It's completely up to you. I've been taking suggestions from you guys on Twitter what albums I should be listening to in 2019. I made it my goal to listen to a lot more music to broaden my taste, and it just so happens that these 4 that I'm going to give you are albums that I hadn't heard before like a week ago. So they're brand new to me. Not every album throughout the year is going to be new to me, but these 4 are. So the albums we're going to be discussing today are Ixora by Copeland, The Golden Age of Not Even Trying by Dead, Strange Trails by Lord Huron, and Trip by Jukai. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. There is going to be a big Spotify playlist that gets bigger and bigger throughout the year, where you can have access to all of these albums. The link will be down in the description below. It will be updated on the 1st of every single month. Also, we're going to be getting t-shirts, all right? I've got ideas in mind, just give me a little while, but we're gonna have t-shirts. So album number 1, this is Ixora by a band called Copeland. I presume it's pronounced Ixora, tell me if I'm wrong. It's 41 minutes long, it has 10 songs, and it was released in 2014. And the band originally split in 2008 before reuniting and releasing this album. So listening to the opening track, I quickly realized this was a band that easily could have made it onto the Life is Strange soundtrack. I mean, was Life is Strange out in 2014? Not sure. But the first track has this really warm, inviting sound. It's warm and it's embracing, but for a song that is written about love, and love is an ongoing theme throughout the album, so many lyrics are about relationships. This first song is it's melancholic, and that sort of theme of melancholy continues through the album. Some songs, such as track 2 and track 5, contain electronic elements, particularly in terms of percussion, which complement the natural acoustic instruments of piano and strings so beautifully. There's never like a moment where the album throws you. Like, everything is so cohesive and works together. It's just a beautiful album from start to finish. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 tracks that I would call the standout tracks on the album. Erase is my first standout track. It's a song that has no chorus. It's just the same structure going throughout the song, and it has this really slow, gradual build towards an amazing instrumental ending. It's honestly, when I heard it, I was like, oh my god, I was blown away by it. Another standout track, by the way, I have notes. I have a lot of notes. Another standout track for me was a song called Chiromancer. I don't know what that means, but Chiromancer is such an emotionally intense song. Like, the rest of the album, like, you know, it's dreamy and it's floaty and it's warm and it's melancholic, but this song, like, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I know that if I was listening to this album whilst like doing a long drive, I know that this song would just make me cry. I don't know why I cry in cars, but apparently I do. It seems to be about the loss of a loved one. I don't know whether that's through like the end of a relationship or through death. It seems more like through death, but there is really no other way to describe it other than really intense. And if you only listen to one song from the album, I would recommend that it was this one. It's really sad, but beautiful at the same time. And finally, another track that I really liked was In Her Arms You Will Never Starve, which is the end track. I'm a sucker for songs that have like a shift of dynamics in the middle. At first I was like, oh, this is really nice, and then wham, like you'll hear it. And I'm not gonna give too much of it away, mostly because I don't know how to explain the song, but it elevates the song to like this whole other level. It's a perfect ending track. And the instrument, which I presume is a block, I'm not actually sure. It's so special at the end. It's so beautiful. So that's Ixora. I would say I want to give this album like an 8 out of 10. If I had to give it a rating. It took 2 listens through to really appreciate it, but I remember hearing it the first time in the background and instantly being caught at certain moments. So it's definitely an album that will grab your attention, and it's just really beautiful. So Let me know if you agree. So, album number 2, The Golden Age of Not Even Trying by the band Dead, with an exclamation mark at the end of Dead. This album is 40 minutes long, it has 12 songs, and it was released in 2018. I first listened to this album in my car, driving back to Brighton, and it's not an album that grabbed me immediately. Like the first few tracks, particularly the first song, didn't really grab me, and I thought, I'm not gonna enjoy this album. But as the album goes on, you realize that the production of this album is so good. It's amazing. The bass has such a gorgeous tone to it, and the songwriting is really special for a band in 2018. Overall, their sound is really, really impressive. However, like I said, you wouldn't really get that from track 1, I don't think. But track 2, called Enough, 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 it has enough, it has enough like quirks in it that make it sort of stand out to your ears, like, oh, what was that? And you realize it's not just like another rock band like trying to make it, like they do genuinely have like a unique, distinct sound. But I find that from like track 2 onwards, like every song has something special about it that just keeps you listening. And by track 5, which is called Off-White Paint, you realize that this is an album that you want playing in the background when you just want to feel like a complete badass. Like I said before, the bass has such an amazing tone, and I don't know if it's just me, so let me know once you've listened to this album, but I feel like the vocalist, his name is Alex Mountford. His voice reminds me a lot of Josh Franceschi from You Me at 6. I mean, by all means, like, call me out if you think I'm wrong on that. But sadly, and I only found this out while I was writing my notes for this, the band have split up. They decided that this summer was gonna be their last touring leg. And now that's it, which is such a shame, because I really do think this album was really, really strong, and had they continued or been able to continue, I don't know what happened. Like, I really, really do think that they could have really made a big name for themselves. They've been going since 2012, but like, I had never heard of them before. But like, I'm just really sad that we won't get any more from them as the band Dead. Anyway, so let's talk about some of my favorite songs. The song You're So Cheap is like the pop single. Like, if you had to choose, if you were like a record label or management and you had to choose a single from the album, it would be You're So Cheap, just in terms of its overall sound. And the chorus is so catchy. The guitars just like really wail, and the chords chosen are so lush. It really is a great song. My favorite track on the album is called Up for Ransom. Musically and lyrically, it's such a heavy, intense song. And the chorus, for me, of Up for Ransom is the strongest on the album. Up for ransom, up for ransom. It's so good. I know that I just used the word good. Like, I'm not gonna pretend that I'm an amazing album reviewer, okay? Like, if you want that, go to ARTV, right? I'm just here telling you that there are some really, really good songs on this album. And finally, one of my favorite songs is called W9. This is track 9. Very clever. For me, it's a standout song because it's a lot slower than the others on the album. That makes it really, really unique in context of every other song. It just has a wonderful sound, and the lyrics tell a really, really good story. And again, feel free to tell me that you don't hear this, but in this song particularly, W9, Alex's vocals, there are certain points where I'm just like, I can hear the Gerard Way influence, like just in terms of delivery and tone. Like, there's a little bit of, I could see Gerard Way doing that like in the prime MCR days. There's a lot of like vocal slides that make me think of like Black Parade album and stuff. I personally hear it. Let me know if you do as well. He's a great vocalist, and I hope that he continues to do stuff despite the band breaking up. I mean, they're all really, really talented musicians, but like, I hope we get to hear more of his voice. Overall, I would say this album is a 7 out of 10. It does have some weak spots. I know this is stupid to say, but like, the good songs are really, really good, and then the ones that are okay are just like, you know, they do really let the album down. But genuinely, like, I wish we could have seen where the band was gonna go. They were signed to a major. They were under Raw Power Management, which are huge. So I don't know what happened, but you know, unfortunately, it is hard to survive as a musician these days. So album number 3, this is called Strange Trails by Lord Huron. I'd never heard of Lord Huron before. It turns out that's a band, not a person. The album has 14 songs, it's 55 minutes long, and it was released in 2015. I know I said this about Copeland, but track 1 particularly of this album, I know I've already said this, but it would fit so well in the Life is Strange soundtrack. Like, you're always gonna hear me talk about Life is Strange when it comes to like soft, folky, acoustic songs that are just like really melancholic. From the moment that Love Like Ghost kicks in, like on that point where everything starts moving, it might remind you of Mount Washington, which is a song by Local Natives, which is on the Life is Strange soundtrack, and I think that's why it reminds me so much of that soundtrack. Until the Night Turns, which is track 2, is like by far the most upbeat song on the album, but it's the only sort of country fast-paced song on the album, which is disappointing because I really love like just fast, strong country. But like this is a perfect song to be playing like driving a car, rolling the windows down, speeding down like a countryside motorway. You know, it's a really, really great song. However, like overall, a problem that I do have with this album is that too many of the tracks on this album blend into each other far too easily. Like it's good when songs sort of, you know, they all work together, but when they all sound exactly the same, there just isn't a lot to differentiate each track, in my opinion. And I feel like most tracks sort of lack distinct qualities that make it its own song. It's not always a bad thing. You know, like, I feel like it's an insult to call it background music, but it is an album that sort of, you know, sort of drifts on and you can just absorb it all. But there's not gonna be a moment that makes you go, ooh, that's different. So I would say if I had to choose some standout tracks besides the ones that I've already mentioned, there's a song called La Belle, Fleur, Sauvage. I don't know what that means. And the ending track, which is called The Night We Met. Now you might recognize this song from the 13 Reasons Why soundtrack if you watched 13 Reasons Why, which I did. I don't remember it being on there, but that's because I watched it a long time ago. But apparently that's how this album sort of became known. Maybe that's why one of you guys suggested it to me. It is a really good song, but again, my problem is I'm finding it really hard to talk about this album in depth because there's just not a lot to say apart from that it's just a nice laid back acoustic folk kind of sounding album. I will say, like, as a positive note, because it is so, I don't want to say samey because that's really, really insulting, but like because the tracks do blend into each other, like I said, it is really easy to absorb and digest and you won't realize that you're on the final track of the album. It will just carry on through while you're working, and that can be a really, really good thing, especially if you're like trying to pay attention to your work, homework, or just research or whatever. Sometimes you don't want an album that sort of takes you out of that, so this could be really good for you. Overall, I would say the album is a 5 out of 10. Again, purely because it just didn't really capture my imagination. You guys might feel completely differently, but the songs that do stand out, like track 1 and track 2 particularly, those are my favorites on the album. It's just a shame that the other songs aren't as distinctive as them. Now, our final album, I have 2.5 pages of notes because this album is 22 tracks long. It's called Trip by Jukai. Please tell me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I probably am. It's 85 minutes long. This is a biggie, okay? And it was released in 2017. Now, when I first heard it, when you guys suggested it and I put it on my to listen to playlist, it caught me from track 1. Like immediately, I was like, whoa. What is this? So this album is alternative R&B, and you can probably tell from the title, it's about tripping. In an interview, Jukai, she stated that it's inspired by every type of trip you could imagine, mental, physical, even psychedelic. And as the album goes on, it's very, very clear which songs are about which type of trip. It tells a story from start to finish. It's unbelievably good. And I'm not a massive fan of the sound that's on this album typically, but this album is honestly fantastic. The lyrics on this album are amazing. The storytelling is phenomenal throughout the music and the lyrics. Right, let's get into it because this is a long one. So track 2, I don't know how to pronounce it. Jukai. It's an acoustic number and it has some incredible strings that are so unique. It keeps the urgency of this song at the forefront because this song is inspired by the suicide forest in Japan. Don't do it. I know what you want to say. Don't say it. This album was out before all of that, and I wish more people knew about this song instead of Logan Paul. The lyrics are absolutely mind-blowing, and I wrote down on my notes, quote them, so now I have to get them up. If anyone should try and find me, just know I'm where I want to be. I left the house all clean and tidy. Don't come searching, please. Would you believe hell is not a place, hell is not a certain evil, hell is other people or the lack thereof and their lack of love. Oh, sorry, it's just, she is a phenomenal songwriter. And by the end of this track, you are just so desperate to hear where the album's gonna go. There's like a spoken part where someone finds her in the forest. And that leads on to track 3, which is called While We're Young. This song is such a standout, just like the track before it. It has this lush, laid-back R&B sound. And the lyrics describe the euphoria of having like a new love that you're just obsessed with. And I can kind of relate to that right now, you know. When am I ever gonna stop talking about being in love? I'm not. I'm not, ever. Get used to it. The chorus is so catchy and it's so dreamy and the guitar is so sexy. It just adds this layer of intimacy that to me, it reminds me of like waking up on a Sunday morning next to the person you love and just wanting to just lay there all day doing nothing. It's honestly so romantic. I love it. I love this song. So obviously, like I said, this album is 22 tracks long, and this laid-back sort of lush R&B sound continues throughout the album until track 12, so around halfway. And don't get me wrong, all of those songs are wonderful and amazing, but this video is already going on quite long. Just trust me that every song you can just absorb, and it's wonderful, and they all stand out from each other. However, like in the songs leading up to track 12, the lyrics start talking more about drug use, and like it's only talking about like weed, and then it starts talking about taking LSD, like talking about like dropping tabs and stuff. That's particularly prominent in a song called Sativa, I don't know. But it's still really laid back and chilled out until track 12, which is called Nobody, and then into a track called Overstimulated, and this is where the album really takes a darker turn. This song talks about the feeling of taking too many drugs and the paranoia that comes with it. The end of this song, I will warn you, is pretty haunting. I wasn't expecting it. There's a lot of screaming and stuff. Talking about like why would you do this to me? As in she's being given drugs, and that goes into a song called Bad Trip. This is a 2-minute interlude on the album, and it's like firmly divides like the two halves of the album. Like the first part is all lush and lovely and laid back, and then this 2-minute interlude says, right, we're now doing this. Again, I don't want this to be too long. All of the tracks from track 12 onwards, like they have a darker tone until track 19. Now all of those tracks I haven't spoken about, they are fantastic, but track 19, I remember even on my first listen, I've listened to it a few times now, even on the first listen, this song just caught my attention straight away. It's a song called Sing to Me, which starts with Jean's daughter, her real life daughter, saying, "Wake up, mommy." It just sounds creepy when I say it, doesn't it? And that darker psychedelic tone just begins to lift as though Jean has like woken up from her bad trip and everything is back to normal, and you have what they call like the afterglow. Don't ask how I know that, oh god. But where you just, you know, everything just feels light again, this relief that things are back to normal, and there's so much clarity and stuff like that. And this song is a mother and daughter duet, and it's a personal highlight on the album for me. If you go onto YouTube, well, you're on YouTube right now, if you look up the live version where Jean and her daughter actually sing this, it's so heartwarming. I love it so much. The album's next two songs, so track 20 and 21, they focus on this theme of spiritual freedom, which again, I guess would come out of waking up from a bad trip. And there's the theme of hope and optimism in these lyrics. And some of the lyrics suggest that like there's been like a realization that things in her life need to change after experiencing that trip. The track Ascension, featuring Brandy, a legend, can I just say? It's such, I can't describe it other than it's just a beautiful piece of music, and it fills you with this sense of hope and healing. And I really wish this had been the last track on the album. It would have been so much better as the ending track. I'm a huge fan of like things having a happy ending, and this would have been great. However, there is one more track. So the final song is called Trip. So it's the title track, but it leaves the album on like a slightly like darker, sad kind of note. So here are some lyrics from it. "On nights like this I ride, turn the music up to keep from crying. Please don't let the darkness keep me low." And it's just like, I don't know, I wish the album hadn't ended on it. It reminds us that like life is full of highs and lows, and not everything has a happy ending. And like I said, like even though it's more realistic, I just think Ascension would have been a better song to end the album on. However, besides that, this album was seriously an amazing journey. It just gets better and better with every listen. It tells an incredible story. The way that the songs change throughout the album to tell that story is phenomenal. The high points on the album are amazing. So I would give this album a 9 out of 10. So like I said, there is a link down below to a playlist with all of these albums on. So now that I've talked about these albums, your job down below is at any point throughout this month just leave a comment telling me which albums you enjoyed, which songs from which albums you enjoyed. Did you enjoy any of them? What were your favourite parts? And also, suggest some albums for me to add to my to listen to playlist. And you never know, those albums might come up in next month's album club video. I still don't know what I'm going to call our club, but it's a thing. It's a thing. We're gonna get t-shirts. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this new concept. Again, Happy New Year. There's gonna be tons more videos this year, way more than there were last year, hopefully, anyway. And until next time, guys, I shall catch you later.